Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag from the Heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine on ESPN Radio 1230. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
John, we're back this week for a recap of several interesting things that happened in the week since we were gone. And in the last week, I guess we weren't gone a week. I mean, but these weeks, so many things happen in a week's time that it feels like we could probably do 2 or 3 shows a week. But I'm not sure we could pull that off.
We can try, but I don't know if I can either. Yeah, a little busy.
Yeah, I guess the main thing I want to kick this show off talking about a big game that Barron County Trojanettes are going to play today against Warren East in softball. The game is at 5:30, right?
5:30
at Barron County High School, and Warren East is the number 2 team in the state. They are undefeated. They are 19-0 right now.
That's correct.
Barron County is 20-2, and this looks like a great game for anybody who is interested in high school softball.
Well, it's an opportunity for Warren East is exactly where I think everybody thought they'd be. They were the state runner-up last year with virtually every player back, including their pitcher, Katie Gardner.
Yep.
And so I don't think it's any surprise that Warren East is sitting up there 19-0 or what. That's you generally lose a game or two in softball. And Warren East was supposed to play in a real big tournament in E-Town this past weekend. It was rained out.
Yeah. That would have been a good one to see them get through.
Yeah, because they Mail and who's number 1 in the state, and several good teams were up there. But Warren East is obviously legitimately good, and be quite honest with you, they've not been tested very much. I think South Warren, may have played them fairly close.
Yeah, I think that one was 3-1.
Was at 3-1.
I think so.
They shut out Greenwood, I believe. Warren East is where they are. Barron is the team that has probably surprised more people, losing several seniors from last year and relying so much on freshmen at key spots. Their catchers are freshmen. Their pitcher is a freshman, and of course she's been the big surprise this year. How well she's pitched, and Barron being 20-2. And has just really, be honest with you, has annihilated a lot of teams. I mean, they have really, really hit the ball well. The best pitcher they faced all year will be Katie Gardner. It'd be interesting to see if Barron can put some runs up against Katie Gardner.
You were right. Warren East beat South Warren 7-3. They beat Lafayette 3-0. You're talking about tough matches for them. They did play in the Cal Ripken Experience at Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. They played all Kentucky teams down there, but they beat Lafayette and Madison Southern, Whitley County, Bullitt East. I mean, their closest games have been the Bullitt East. That was a 6-3, and then Madison Southern they beat them 5-2, and Lafayette they beat them 3-0. But overall, against some. As you said, they haven't really been tested, but they've those teams that they probably played that Cal Ripken Experience probably the best slate of teams they've seen.
Right.
But one thing I was going to say about Barron County, you're talking about the graduation and that kind of thing. But one thing that has worked out for Barron County, I think, is last season was disappointing for them, mostly as a result of injuries and some players or a player or two who decided not to play and that kind of thing, and they didn't do as well as was anticipated going into last season. They were expected to be a threat in the region last season, and it just didn't pan out for them. The upside of that is some young players got experience last year, and that seems to be panning out for the Trojanettes.
That's exactly right. And sometimes with injuries, injuries create opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's exactly kind of what happened last year. And Barron played some key 8th graders last year.
Right.
And those 8th graders are now freshmen. And like Allie Anderson is a really good player, hitter. She plays in the outfield. She can really she got good experience, and I think she's moved to the shortstop actually.
Right.
And they're starting several freshmen, but I think the surprise is the pitching, and it's the Brody girl, Lily Brody, freshman, who I think they've always felt that she was good and had potential, but I don't think they felt like she'd be this ready this year.
Yeah.
And she really has done a really good job, but she'll be tested today. because Warren East, obviously, if you're 19-0, you're scoring off everybody, but they have a really good hitting team. If it's the same group as they were last year, they can beat you in different ways. They've got power, and they also have speed. And the coach at Warren East, he utilizes the speed game if he has to. They can bunt, they can hit. They've kind of got different ways to beat you. And this will be a challenge. I don't know. I'm sure it's a game that probably both teams are looking forward to. I've got a gut feeling Barron is probably a little bit more excited about this game than Warren East. Because I think Warren East thinks, they're almost like Golden State right now. They
right.
kind of think they belong here, and Barron's got something to prove.
Yeah, and I guess especially after last season, I would say that all of these young players on this team for Barron are apparently they entered this season with the idea they had something to prove. And they're doing it so far.
Yeah. It's be 20-2 in any sport's pretty darn good, and the way they've gotten 20-2 has been impressive too. It's not like they're winning a lot of 2-1 games.
Yeah. Meanwhile, they are running away with the 15th district. I don't, unless something crazy happens, I don't see any of the other three teams in the district, Allen County, Glasgow, or Monroe, challenging them for the district this year. They just seem to be head and shoulders above the rest of the district.
It would take, you don't want to forecast it, but it'd take an injury to a key player, and generally your key players are your pitchers and things like that. But the way Barron has played and the way they hit, they're going to be hard to beat in the district.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Lady Scotties, they also play today. They play Russellville, which ironically is one of two teams to have beaten Barron County this year.
Best Russellville softball team they've ever had.
Yeah, I was looking back. They've made the region, I think, twice, 2015 and then 2005. Russellville is not like a team that you circle on the schedule and say that's going to be a tough one.
No,
usually.
It's generally a win.
Yeah.
They generally really struggle. Sometimes they struggle even having enough players to play.
Oh, yeah.
And there have been years they've been not competitive at all. This is not one of those years. They got a really good pitcher.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, they also beat Glasgow last week, 11-0. That was one of Glasgow's games last week. So that's who they play. They've played Logan County once. Russellville has, and they lost 3-1 in the 13th district. But they look to be the second best team in the district probably, and who knows how that works out. If Russellville, this may be a year that Russellville makes the regional tournament again and may be a threat in the regional tournament, at least first round game.
Maybe first round.
Yeah.
I don't think they're a threat to East, and I would like Barron's chances the second time.
Yeah, I think that was the tail end of like 6 games in 2 days or something
That's
like
correct.
that. So, meanwhile, also the Glasgow Scotties baseball team, they're on a roll right now. I think they've won 7 in a row.
10-5.
10-5, yep. They gave up 43 runs in their first 4 games, and that included beating Cumberland County 15-0. So, really, it was 43 runs in 3 games.
That's right.
And they've given up 45 since. So, they've fixed some things. They've gotten some people, I think, healthy.
Jaden Franklin's back. Didn't play the first 3 or 4 games. He's played the last 12. I think I was looking at his stats, he's hitting close to 490.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think the Abernathy kid's playing well for him. He leads the team in RBIs.
Yep. So they've gotten some help. They found some pitchers that I don't know how many of them Coach Royce had circled as ones he was going to go to at the start of the year, but it's working out for him. And they're rolling along. Now, they do get a test today because they will play at South Warren. South Warren, one of the top 3 teams in the region.
It is, and it's hard to – I haven't looked at South Warren's schedule too, but that district, it's sometimes it's confusing to know who you'll get when you play those teams because they play 3-game series.
Yeah.
And it's always middle of the week.
Right.
So if oftentimes when you play South Warren, Greenwood, or Warren East from other districts, you may not be facing their best because they've got to pitch their best 3 pitchers like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday series. And I don't know if that's the case tonight or not because if it is, you're not going to face – Glasgow's not going to face their 1, 2, or 3.
Well, this week South Warren is playing a non-district schedule.
All right.
So they play Glasgow and Allen County and then Henry Clay. They start their next series next week against Warren Central.
Okay. Well, they have a chance to face one of the better pitchers then.
Yeah, so and I think that would be a good thing for Glasgow to get a chance to see one of South Warren's better pitchers.
Yeah, you'd want to.
Yeah, just so you have an idea. And then Barron County plays at Franklin Simpson tonight. Franklin Simpson's 10-10, usually one of the top teams in the region.
They play a good schedule.
They do play a good schedule, so it won't be.
Barron's 6-10 and still have not got the 2 pitchers back yet, though I think they're close to returning.
Yeah. Now Barron, they've looked good in some games. I tell you what, Combs is on the mound.
They have a shot to win.
They have a shot to win. As
Right.
soon as he leaves the game right now, they seem to struggle as soon as he has to leave.
Yeah, well, it's very few people can replace 2 pitchers.
Yeah.
2 starting pitchers.
Right.
That's not easy to do in high school.
Yeah.
You can't do it in the pros really either.
Right. So I mean that's kind of the slate for today, and then I think Barron County, do they have like a district game tomorrow? I just forgot to look at this. But we get some more district games starting out. Barron plays at Monroe tomorrow. And then they have a pretty tough week because then they play at Logan Saturday. So, and then it looks like they're off Friday. And then Glasgow and Allen, do they play again? Yes, they also play tomorrow. So we have a couple of district games tomorrow for baseball.
Should have great weather this week too.
Yeah, it looks like a beautiful week. No Thursday thunderstorms, or I tell you, it started raining Thursday last week, and it didn't stop.
Went through Saturday.
Yeah, we were moving some furniture up in northern Kentucky in the rain. It was beautiful.
Yeah, rain and cold.
Yeah,
But for the most part, baseball and softball has been very fortunate. They had good weather.
yeah,
I mean, one of the reasons that Barron is 20-2 is I think they've only had 1 rain out.
yeah.
So they've gotten every game possible in for the most part.
Yeah, I mean it's and the interesting thing is the way the season works out. The graduations are about a month away.
Yes.
But the season goes on for about a week or so after that, depending on how deep you go in the postseason. And so, I mean, even though school's out in about a month, we still have about 6 weeks of the baseball season.
Right. Well,
baseball and softball.
And in reality, that's kind of when baseball and softball is designed to be played.
Yeah.
More May and June.
Yeah.
Where the weather's better.
Yep. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. When we come back, we're going to talk about we have a draft night coming up. Hopefully, John will get to join us. It'll be over at Buffalo Wild Wings in Bowling Green. And we met Trent Dilfer last week, and he gave us a little insight about the NFL draft.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
John, last week we discussed, 2 weeks ago, Brian Webb came by and we discussed the fact that he was going to jump out of a perfectly good airplane with the U.S. Army Knights, and he did that on Wednesday. And part of what came out of that was Trent Dilfer, the Super Bowl winning quarterback for the Ravens in 2000, the Baltimore Ravens in 2000, where his primary job, I think, was to hand the ball to Jamal Anderson and then let Ray Lewis and the rest of those guys take care of everything else. He's got a ring.
Make a few throws.
He did make a few throws. I mean, he was not a bad NFL quarterback.
Absolutely. Anybody at that level is pretty darn good.
Yeah, and when you meet these people, it goes back to what we've talked about before. You see these professional athletes in whatever the sport is, and there are lots of Jimmys and Joes out there who think they can be professional athletes,
right.
But when you see these people in person, or you talk to them and that kind of stuff,
they're different.
Yeah, I mean, look, Trent Dilfer is 6'4", weighs 200 and some odd. He's not a fat guy or whatever, but he's like 230 pounds or whatever.
Yeah,
maybe more than that.
Yeah, he's kind of Ben Roethlisberger size.
Yeah. So you meet these people in person, and I always think back to like Clarence Weatherspoon when I was in college. He was 6'4" and 240 pounds, and he was basically a midget in the NBA.
Yep.
And so you see these people in person, and it's really impressive physically how big they are, how big you have to be, unless you're just super fast to play any kind of professional sport. So anyway, it was kind of interesting. Brian jumped out of a plane strapped to a Golden Knight named John Lopez.
And survived.
He did survive. He said he would not do it again. I'm sure if you listen to the Sports Web tomorrow night, he'll talk about this as well, because he did an interview with Trent Dilfer while he was there, so he's got some sound bite from that. And there were some interesting things that came out of it that really had nothing to do necessarily with Trent Dilfer. I mean, we got to meet the new head football coach at Austin Peay University down there. His name is Mike Hudspeth. He had been the tight ends coach and some form of coordinator at Mississippi State before taking that job. He also was formerly the head football coach at Louisiana Lafayette for 7 years. So Hilltopper fans may know who he is. I mean, they used to be in the Sun Belt together, I believe. So, that was interesting. We met a guy who is a radio DJ in Nashville whose name is Squidgy.
Interesting.
We met a guy named Ronald Bailey. He's a retired Marine major who his job while in the Marines was to jump out of perfectly good airplanes. And he now is a media coordinator for Austin Peay University. Met lots of great people who are in the Army, the jumpers and that kind of stuff. Met a lady named Liz whose job is to pack the parachutes between jumps. And she can pack a parachute in 4 minutes and a super parachute in 8 minutes. She was pretty fascinating to watch somebody pack a parachute. Let me put it that way.
Pretty important.
Yeah. I mean, because you don't really – here's what you don't think about. And I didn't think about this at all. Between each jump, they're using the same parachutes. So between each jump, these parachutes have to be repacked. That person has got to be perfect, 30, 35 times in a 5-hour period.
Does she check to see if it's ripped?
Yeah, she has to do like an inspection and everything
Good.
of it. And then
that's why I say she's pretty important.
Yeah, I mean, she's and I told the jump master, I said, no offense to you guys jumping out of the airplane, but she works harder than any of you guys. He goes, oh, yeah, I tried to do what she does for 6 months, and I had to go back to what I was doing.
You'd rather jump out of a plane and put it together. Yeah, okay, it tells you something.
So anyway, that was a pretty nifty experience. I didn't jump out of a perfectly good plane, but just the periphery of meeting all the people associated with the Golden Knights, with the U.S. Army recruiting service out of Nashville, athletes and that kind of stuff who had come to do this. Was all pretty interesting. But that kind of leads me, the Trent Dilfer part leads me into what you and I want to talk about here, which is the NFL draft that is coming up on, like I mentioned,
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Thursday night.
First round.
It will be the first round from 5:30 to 6:30 on The Point. Chris Bratcher will take care of the Tennessee Titans draft-related stuff, so you can check that out. And then on 102.7 ESPN out of Bowling Green and online, we'll be doing like 2 hours of draft coverage for out of Buffalo Wild Wings there at their new location on Scottsville Road. And one of the interesting things in our brief conversation with Trent Dilfer, I asked him about the Kyler Murray thing, size and that kind of stuff, and whether or not he's a good pick for the Browns. And basically he pointed out
the Cardinals.
The Cardinals, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, the Browns have had so many number one picks. I guess
I think they got a good one.
They finally did. Mm-hmm. And this kind of he kind of goes against conventional wisdom himself, Baker Mayfield, and so does Kyler Murray in terms of being 5'8", 5'9" as an NFL quarterback. And what Dilfer said is these days, and probably always should have been the case, you draft a quarterback, you build an offense around them. I mean, that's what you do. And their size doesn't matter if they can throw the ball accurately, if they can stay alive in the pocket, whatever they need to do. And, he mentioned Russell Wilson is that kind of quarterback and that kind of thing.
Right.
He'd just gotten paid the day before we were down there.
That's the best comparison of Kyler Murray is Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Though Russell Wilson is not a scrawny guy.
No.
And he's a pretty good.
He's bigger than Murray.
He's bigger than Murray. That's correct. But that's about the under 6 foot too. He's 5'11".
Yeah. So I mean, that's what Dilfer said is that these teams will draft the guy that they believe in, and then if they draft a quarterback, they'll build an offense around them if they're doing it right. If they're doing it wrong, then they're probably not going to do that, and it won't be successful.
Well, you got to have one.
Yes.
And you got to have a good one if you're going to win.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the bottom line. And these are, you can't, you can make a mistake in drafting. You can't make a mistake in drafting a quarterback, number one. You better not screw that up.
Yeah.
And what's interesting with Arizona, they got 2 shots at it because their number one pick last year was Josh Rosen, quarterback out of UCLA, and they're the first team in a long time I read about. I don't know if it's 25, 30 years. It's drafted a quarterback first round back-to-back years.
Yeah.
And of course they hired a new coach, and the guy from Tennessee Tech, he's going to sling it 60, 65 times, and this is a guy he wants.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the anticipation is it's going to be Kyler Murray, and they're going to trade Josh Rosen.
Here's the interesting thing to me, and this is one of the questions posed to Dilfer while we were down there was, do you think they should trade that pick and try to – because the Cardinals need so many spots filled. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't it be better to just trade that pick away and try to fill as many slots as possible? And, his point was more or less just what you just said, which is you've got to have a quarterback. And if they don't believe Rosen is the guy, or Kingsbury doesn't believe Rosen is the guy, then they got to get the guy that Kingsbury thinks is the guy.
Well, I mean, just look at the Browns.
Oh, yeah.
Their entire outlook on their franchise turned around when they finally got the right quarterback.
Yeah.
And it's not because they got Beckham from New York. It's because they got the quarterback.
Yeah.
And their whole outlook on their, now the deal with quarterbacks, though, is the best time to win with quarterbacks is early because they're not taking $25-30 million a year.
Yeah, before
unless you're Brady, but Brady doesn't take that 25-30. He takes a discount.
Yeah.
But so it's the Russell Wilson deal.
Mm-hmm.
They won while Russell Wilson was making $600,000. Then you could pay all your other players.
Yeah.
We'll see now if they're going to win as much when they're paying him $35 million.
To me though, the Seahawks were over a barrel in a way because Russell Wilson is their offense, and to let him go is basically letting your offense go.
It's tough, but I don't know if you can win that way either.
No.
It hasn't been proven you can win when your quarterback's getting that much money.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another thing too. They are in no man's land in a sort of way because they make the playoffs or they just miss the playoffs, however it works out. So they're not getting any good draft picks. They're not moving up on the board in that way, and it doesn't seem like they've been bringing in free agents in any significant way to fill out the defense still. I mean, they've lost all those defensive stars except for one. I think Earl Thomas is the only one left, and that's really been the key to their success through the years. Is you had Russell Wilson who could do things when everything broke down, but in the end, they played good defense and they ran the football effectively. And that's how they got to 2 Super Bowls and won one of them and that kind of thing.
Should have won the second one.
Should have won the second one, yeah. Not for Malcolm Butler.
Yep.
But, so, I mean, it's kind of – the NFL is kind of a tricky thing because also out of this last playoff season, we have all these high-profile offense, and we get to the Super Bowl, and the team that can play defense best is the one that ends up winning.
New England.
And
well, that's the one constant is New England.
Yeah. I mean, nobody else can copy what they do. I mean, yes, Tom Brady – is Tom Brady, but he didn't do anything significantly special in the Super Bowl. They just played great defense from get-go. And really, I think that's true throughout the whole playoffs.
Yeah, they do something that works, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And nobody's found the magic formula for how to copy that.
And not one, well, maybe there's only one Picasso. There's only one Bill Belichick. That's probably the ultimate, that's it right there, Bill Belichick.
Yeah. Now, are you a Titans fan? Do you follow the Titans at all?
Fan, I like them. I mean, I'm not against them. I don't know. I mean, I grew up as a Dallas Cowboy fan.
Yeah,
that's who I grew up as. But as I've gotten older, I guess I like New England.
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you. I appreciate what they do, and I really do. Their smarts and how they run things, and I really appreciate them. But with fantasy football. You kind of lose sometimes you kind of lose your attachment to teams. Now you're more into players.
Well, and you mentioned New England. I think they have 12 picks in this draft.
Yeah, I mean that's normal.
Yeah, I mean so that's part of the thing.
Yeah,
going back to
they never have top picks, but they always got picks.
Yeah, going back to the Cardinals thing. I mean, if the Cardinals were to let that pick go to someone else and bolster it with 3 other picks or 5, how many they could pick up, I mean they would be closer to the path of following the Patriots than any other way. But I think that's the other thing about the Patriots. You talk about there only being one Picasso, one Bill Belichick. The other thing you kind of have to be is willing to withstand the second guessing. You can't live in the what if I make a mistake.
No, well that's where they've won so much. They have that street cred where that doesn't bother them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't bother Bill Belichick at all to be criticized.
And obviously, I would say going back to 1999.
Yeah, I mean, he has a track record.
Yeah, I mean, it's just once he was allowed to kind of be who he is,
right?
It seems to have worked out pretty well. And we'll see how much longer it lasts. But I think that's it. I mean, it's not a matter of guts. It's a matter of, I tell you what, it's like this. Your employer has to say to you, I've got your back no matter what.
Yeah.
And I just think out of the other NFL franchises, that number is very small.
Yes, it's win now.
Yep.
And don't screw it up.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is. And there's just very few. You can just look at the NFL coaches. There's only, 5 that's been there Belichick, Sean Payton.
Yeah, you got Mike Tomlin.
Pittsburgh does not fire their coaches.
Yeah.
The Seattle guy, Pete
Carroll, yeah.
Pete Carroll, and that's
Well, you got Jason Garrett too, but does
Jason.
he count?
Yeah, that's an odd. That's an odd one, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. And that's kind of. He's there because he doesn't cross the boss. That's
right.
It's Jerry Jones's team.
He's figured out where to be the middleman,
That's right.
play the middleman perfectly.
That's
hasn't he?
right. That's right. But nobody else is. Their shelf life's not long in that league.
Yeah. I asked the question about the Titans because they have a quarterback, Marcus Mariota, but I'm not so sure that they are sold on him anymore.
Why should they? I
Yeah.
mean, this is his 5th year. I think it's make it or break it for him.
Yeah.
I mean, he has to have a year that you can convince Tennessee that he's the man, or they got to move on.
Yeah.
And part of playing today is you got to be durable,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like he's hurt a lot.
Yeah.
In fairness to him, they've changed coaches and offensive coordinators almost every year.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't have a year in which, I don't think he threw 15 touchdowns last year. I mean, he needs to put up like 30.
Yeah.
And I think they want him to be the guy,
Mm-hmm.
but they also traded and got the guy from Miami as his backup,
Right.
Tannehill.
Yep.
So that tells you, A, they don't trust he can be healthy, or B, they may not trust he can be the man.
I would go back to also, I think, what Trent Dilfer said about getting a quarterback and building a team around him. I'm not convinced the Titans have really done that with Mariota. I'm not sure what kind of team you build around him because he is kind of fragile. So the team,
he was an Oregon guy, which it was they were never under center.
Mm-hmm.
Spread. It was spread.
Yeah.
He's a mobile guy, and they have been much more 2 backs under center and run it. And I never thought they really used him to get out of the pocket. Most of the time he's injured in the pocket, oddly.
Yeah. Well, their offensive line has been kind of porous over the few years he's been there, so that's the other thing about it.
I never have thought that they've had an offensive genius back there calling a lot of his plays and so forth, to be honest with you. Maybe, but, that's in one sense that's unfair on my part because I'm not there. I mean, those guys know 100 times more about offensive football than I do, but it just doesn't seem like the system is the system that would necessarily fit him.
Yeah. So it'll be curious to see what they do. There are a number of quarterbacks in this draft after Kyler Murray. I don't know that any of them are light up the room kind of quarterbacks.
I don't know if Kyler Murray is either.
Yeah,
but,
right.
But he's but the team that's drafting one is going to have a coach that they want him bad enough.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a great quarterback in there. To be perfectly honest, I thought last year's class is a lot better than this year's class.
Yeah.
But, you only need to be wanted by one team.
Right. Well, and what I'm getting at, too, is that there may be a quarterback in this draft that does not look like an outstanding quarterback, but may turn into one.
That's correct.
Because so many of them are getting overshadowed. They're not getting scrutinized, so we don't know as much about them as soon as Kyler Murray said he was going to enter the draft.
That's correct.
I mean, they've all kind of dropped off the radar. I mean, if he wasn't in the draft, there'd be 5 guys all getting, who's going to be the number 1 quarterback taken. They're all afterthoughts at this point, which might serve them well.
It could. The lower you fall, the better team you're going to get.
Yeah.
And just expectations-wise or whatever. But, Dak Prescott, your boy, he was the 4th-round pick.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom Brady was, the 6th round. So sometimes it's what I have read and kept up with, oftentimes it's how well you're developed. You got to get in the right system with the right quarterback coach and, the right people around you, and that plays a big role. And because oftentimes these guys get put in the wrong spot or they get put in bad situations too early, and it destroys their confidence or whatever.
Yeah. That being the case, I do wonder if the Titans will try to grab up one of these quarterbacks just
I don't
to
know.
see.
Since they traded for Tannehill, I don't think they're going to take a quarterback early anyway.
Well, I wouldn't think early, but maybe a 3rd-round guy, 4th-round, something like that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, look, let's be honest. Nobody's like going, yeah, Tannehill's the savior. I mean, he's not been thus far. He's been a guy that
he's been like Mariota. He's been hurt.
Yeah,
every year he's hurt.
Yeah, and which is the reason he basically ended up not getting to play anymore. He couldn't stay on the field either.
That's correct.
So they have two guys who have a history of not getting to stay on the field. It seems like a good opportunity to try to find somebody to work for the future with, I would say.
Better have a backup plan.
There you go. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, John, the NBA draft is still a ways away, but interesting news happened out of Western this week. Charles Bassey says he will enter the draft, but he's not going to hire an agent, which I kind of like the fact that they do that now. You know, used to you only had two choices. Either you were in the draft or you were in college, and once you were declared for the draft, it was over with for your college career. But they do let these guys, as long as they don't take an agent, they do let them go out and test the waters. I think Lamont Bearden did that last year from WKU.
You just can't if you. The one thing that you get in trouble with, though, is you got to still go to class.
Yeah, which Bearden did not do so well,
correct.
Which is why he missed the first part of the season this past year.
What you do is when you test the NBA draft, you're going to be going to a whole lot of camps and working out for a lot of teams, and they're not doing it on your campus.
Right.
So you got to maintain.
You're on their time.
Yeah, so you got to maintain your grades if you want to be eligible for, and if you decide to come back to college, if you want to be eligible, starting in October.
Yeah, so he's doing that. I don't think anybody's surprised. Like I said, I'm glad he is going the route of not taking an agent because just right now he's a back to the basket, more of an old school center.
15 years ago, he'd be a top 10 pick.
Yeah,
easy.
Yep,
because he's got, he's 7 foot and strong, and he plays like a traditional center has always played up until the revolution of the game. Yeah. And now, his draft status is everywhere. You got certain, you've seen in the teens, anywhere from 10 to 20 he could be. Mm-hmm. Late first round, second round, and there's some that forecasting he's not going to be drafted. Yeah. Which I can't imagine that, but it is. It's a tough time to be a low post center right now in basketball, and it's maybe to change again, but right now what they want centers to do is you better be able to ball screen and roll, or ball screen and shoot a three, and you're doing a whole lot of screening where back when Kareem and Shaq and all those guys played, they put their butt on the block, and the offenses run through them rather than through all the guards in the world.
In the good old days when you were 6'5" and the coach yelled at you, "Why are you out at the 3-point line?" Yeah. You were in high school or whatever. Get on the block.
I still think there's a place to play on the block. Yeah. And I can see an evolution come back again after a while because everybody can't be Golden State or Houston.
Well, one of the interesting things out of these NBA playoffs
and that's a mistake that people make.
That's right. One of the interesting things out of these NBA playoffs this year is that there's a higher percentage of mid-range jumpers being taken. Because of the whole screen and roll action, people are cheating on the threes and forcing people to drive, but they're also sagging into the paint with the big men, and so they're challenging at the rim. So you have a lot of guys pulling up and shooting those mid-range shots, and I think a team taking advantage of that is a team like Portland right now with Damian Lillard. I mean, he's hitting long threes, but he's hitting a lot of shots off the dribble.
I can't tell who plays any different. They all play the same to me.
Is that right?
Yeah, the NBA, every team plays the same. I mean, it's just who's the better shooting team. Yeah, they're all the same. I mean, I can't tell hardly. You can tell the guy from Milwaukee is better than other players, and the Warriors are the Warriors. But for the most part, offensively, the system is ball screen and 5 out, and and that's the way it's being played right now. And it's like it or don't like it, that's the way it is. But college players coming out in Kentucky, of course, they just have a culture of that. Yeah, I mean, everybody that played last year, except for maybe one or two, has announced they're either going or going to do what Bassey's doing. Even Nick Richards, I think, today announced that he was testing the waters. And the last time I saw Nick Richards, I think he played all of 1 minute in their last game.
There was an APB out for him.
Yeah, and he should have played more. But E.J. Montgomery, another guy came off the bench. He's testing the water. I do think the point guard decided he is coming back. He's the only one that's really not. But Tyler Hero and Johnson and what's
PJ Washington.
They have not only said they're going, they've hired agents. They're not coming back.
And out of the whole group, Washington is the only one that looks like he can go and play
Kentucky
in the NBA now.
Kentucky has a culture where if you do come back, you're seen like something's wrong with you.
Right.
And what it does is it puts a lot of pressure on kids either to maybe prematurely go or to transfer.
Yeah.
The guard off the bench is transferring, and they could use him. He was a good shooter, Baker.
Yep.
But they recruit over him.
Right.
That's the danger, If you're a sophomore, you better be really good because there's somebody else. But you're not good enough to go pro, but you still better be better than the 5-star that's coming in behind you.
Calipari has put himself in I'd say a difficult position because he has to recruit the 5-star players. He has to recruit the potential one and done.
Yeah, because if not, he won't have any players back.
Yeah, because he's going to look down and he's going to be like when Stansbury took over at Western. He's going to be like, all right, I got to find some people just to fill out some uniforms.
Well, he's gone to the grad transfer deal too.
Yeah. Apparently, he really liked that deal with Travis Reed. And
he gets a 1-year player, which I think he likes.
Yeah,
with a little bit more experience and maturity.
Yeah, and again, I guess maybe Travis Reed might be able to go and play in the NBA. I don't know, but the only one when you got to the postseason, the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament, the only player on that whole team that looked like a guy that you could trust to score and play the game was Washington. Everybody else, and we talked about this after the tournament, a lot of people, maybe they went to him too much.
They did.
But at the same time, maybe there was a reason they went to him so much. It's because the rest of them didn't look confident or capable.
Or maybe they went to him so much it took the confidence out of the others.
All the rest of them said, I'm here for watch the game anyway. Maybe I should get some popcorn and a soda.
Tyler Hero is
exactly. He's a fantastic example of that.
Yes. Because I thought at times he was ready.
Yeah.
Until I watched that game, and then he didn't look ready.
Yeah.
But
he's not ready defensively in any way.
Well, who is?
Yeah,
when you go to the pros, that's right. That was always the joke. They said that about Rex Chapman and some others about when they went pro. Well, how in the world is he going to guard Michael Jordan? And I'm thinking, who can guard Michael Jordan? Is that the standard?
Yeah, we need to ask him how he's going to guard Muggsy Bogues.
Yes,
forget Michael Jordan.
That's right. Forget about guarding Jordan or LeBron. Nobody can guard them anymore.
Yeah. Louisville, though, is managing to skate under the radar a little bit here in this offseason.
Kind of fits the profile of their coach.
Yeah, Chris Mack, he's not had a whole lot to say.
Now, their best player is testing the water.
Yeah.
Nora.
Hey, but he's not taking an agent, right?
He's not, as far as I know.
Yeah, Jordan
but
Nora.
they've been very under the radar. They did get a St. Joseph transfer point guard.
Yeah.
Averaged 15 a game. They got Mr. Basketball from Kentucky.
Yep.
David Johnson from Trinity.
Yep.
But yeah, they've been under the radar a little bit. But that's kind of Coach Mack's personality, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be pretty interesting when we get to next season and we kind of wake up, because I don't, early in the season there was a lot of talk about the players Mack was bringing in, that he had a great recruiting class. I think at one point it was rated the number 5 class in the nation.
Right.
But there's not a whole lot of talk about the class coming in anymore, and I feel like we may wake up in November next year and be like, wow, I didn't know he had these players. Mm-hmm. But I think you're right. It's just his nature. He doesn't say any more than he has to. And he also strikes me as the kind of coach that when he speaks, it's just exactly what he needs to say.
Right.
Nothing more, nothing less. And seems
I like
to
him.
fit.
Yeah, I do. I like him. And it's probably what they needed.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, of all the trouble and stuff they got into, he's probably the perfect fit. Had a very good year this year, better than probably expectations.
Yeah.
They went out first round, didn't play very well. Didn't play well against Minnesota, but that's probably where they were.
Yeah. And also, talking about the getting ready for the NBA draft part of this, and like I said, I know we're still a month and a half away from that, or maybe even close to 2 months away from the NBA draft. I think what's kind of interesting about the NBA draft this year is I would not be surprised if a lot of the one-and-done players are falling in the draft. I mean, Zion Williamson would
He's
not.
not falling.
He's not. He's probably going number one. I don't know why he
The
wouldn't.
guy from Murray's not going to fall.
Yeah. Well, but he's also not a one-and-done. But
No, two and done.
yeah, two and done. But heck, I think I would take him as a number one player. I mean, John Morant, I just like him as a player.
He's pretty special. He would. Several teams could use him.
Oh yeah, I mean, I tell you, here's the thing about it, and I forget about Steph Curry in this way too. So much is focused on how players score, how they can score, how they can shoot the ball, and do all that kind of stuff. Morant can make passes that nobody else makes, and when you actually watch Steph Curry for any amount of time, you realize, oh yeah, he actually is a point guard. He just is a better shooter than most people.
Correct.
And he can make all kinds of great passes too, which is really all the talk about Golden State and their dynamic offense. That's why it works, because there's no way you can take him out of the game unless he's hurt.
Which he's been at times. But yeah, I agree with that. So it's the football draft, in my opinion, is more interesting overall than the NBA draft, because oftentimes with the NBA draft, those players that are drafted, you don't know the foreign players hardly at all.
Yeah.
But
Luka Doncic. Who's that dude? Well, he might be the best player in the league.
But something about the NFL, any team can win.
Yeah.
I mean, New England's going to win. But, I mean, you can get really good real quick in the NFL. The NBA doesn't seem that way.
No.
I mean, New York and Phoenix and Atlanta, they have been bad for so long.
Yeah, boy.
I mean, so long.
The Knicks are so bad, like Patrick Ewing wanting to go to their game.
Yeah. Now, they could use Zion Williamson.
Yeah.
And they should be the number one pick. They have that kind of a lottery where the teams that are first, second, and third kind of have the same percentage chance. But the Knicks should get Williamson, or the guard from Murray would really help them too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. But
other than those two, who else? Where do you go after those two?
Well, and I don't know, and that's the thing about the NBA too. Is used to what would happen is you knew when the draft came around, if you had one of those first 3 or 4 picks, you were probably going to be able to draft a transformative player.
That's correct.
And that's not really the case anymore because of the one and done thing. You don't know how well they are actually developed.
I agree, and it's not, and you can't do it as well anymore either, because players now are combining free agent wise.
Yeah.
I mean, used to they wouldn't play together, but now you have these super teams where now one great Zion Williamson go to New York, and if nobody else joins him, they're still going to be bad.
Oh yeah, because Zion Williamson is Larry Johnson. For those who don't know who Larry Johnson is, he was on the UNLV Running Rebels. He's 6'5", good athlete, decent shot. Would have absolutely attacked the rim no matter who was in front of him. A lot of fun to watch, but he never really. He was always a good player, but he was on those Hornets teams early on that were not very good. They got better, but I mean they never could get over the hump. And Zion Williamson is basically that guy. He's a little bit bigger than Larry Johnson.
A little bit bigger, probably more explosive.
He is more explosive, but I would say if 20 years comparison, that the growth of athletes and whatnot in 20 years, that's Larry Johnson in a lot of ways.
That's fair. Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't make him capable of being a one-man army in any way.
No, not. You're exactly right. He'll need help, but he's got the personality and the game where he will be he could be a franchise player, but he's going to have help.
Yeah. And the Knicks, here's the thing, if the Knicks pick him, with the way the Knicks have been running of the last few years, you can almost guarantee he will have the worst career possible.
Not had a lot of luck in that franchise.
No, I mean, I don't know if it's luck or not luck. It's been kind of poorly run, it would seem.
There's no question about that.
And so,
this is their best shot at it, though.
Yeah, they better get him, and they better find some people.
Free agents. They say Durant's going there.
Yeah. Well, of course, he's not happy anywhere, so we'll see.
No, that's true. That's the NBA soap opera mill, which is the whole soap opera. They talk more about where guys are going than where they're playing right now.
Yeah, it's days of our lives for sports fans is what the NBA is these days. All right, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, John, we're back. You're gonna tell us a little story about Breanna Stewart, who was the WNBA MVP last year, who injured herself playing in the European League, and it's a fascinating discrepancy when you get down to the money difference between the women's game, which the WNBA is owned by the NBA. You get down to the money discrepancy between what the players make, probably what the teams make, and that kind of stuff, and how this affects what the players do.
Yeah, Breanna Stewart was a four-time All-American at UConn and won 3 national championships. And last year she was her team, the Seattle Storm, I believe, won the WNBA playoffs. She was MVP of the league.
Yeah.
And she tore her Achilles a couple weeks ago overseas playing, and I think she was playing in the finals of the European tournament. Mm-hmm. And, it was a big buzz storm about that on a lot of sites about, why would she be doing that? And the reason why she almost has to play over there because Breanna Stewart being on her rookie, she still, even though she's been in the league 3 years, be her 4th year, she's on a rookie she's only making $63,000 now. I can survive on $63,000, but
yeah,
but that's not in Seattle. You couldn't,
right?
And she's making $63,000 a year. It's all she can make as a rookie on a rookie contract in the WNBA, which forces a lot of these women players, female players. They play pretty much year round. The WNBA season's only 3 months, May through July, and then after that they take a couple weeks off, and then they're playing overseas.
Yeah,
and so part of the issue is one of the reasons why they're injured a lot is because of it's 11 months out of the year. I mean, they don't. The guys get off at least 3 or 4 months, but they're also making $25-30 million.
Also, ironically, they make more money playing overseas than they do playing in the States.
Yeah, I
don't know what the difference is for Breanna Stewart.
6 figures. She made over $100,000 playing over there.
Yeah, I mean, and used to one of the things that the folks in the WNBA feared, at least early on, and even I think this has kind of returned as a fear, is because of the pay scale. Most of the best players may choose to go play in Europe because of the money difference.
They want to play here.
Yeah,
I mean, they don't want to play in the Russian league, and she played on a Russian team.
Yeah,
they don't want to play over there. They want to play here, but they also want to earn a living as well. Mm-hmm. And so I just thought that was interesting to see that. I think the top players in the WNBA, after you get all your rookie contracts, can make up to 100. 90 to 100, but very few do that.
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing about it is I don't know, the NBA has said that the WNBA does not make money, which is part of the problem.
Yes.
That it's fully subsidized in order to even have the league. And often that argument is made about things, especially when it comes to women's sports. It's like, well, nobody's interested in it. It doesn't make the money to cover itself. So you should pat us on the back just because we're giving them the opportunity, which I feel like is not exactly the best way to go about it. I mean,
yeah, you can say that about 90% of the men's sports too at the college level are subsidized.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are only 2 profitable sports in college sports. That's football and men's basketball,
and not
every one of those.
That's exactly right.
And so somebody's getting subsidized somewhere, and
but it's more opportunity than anything else.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really, I think, what the baseline thing that we should be discussing is, how do we give people opportunity? I mean, and 63,000, as you pointed out, may seem like a lot in Barron County, Kentucky, but in most of these markets where these women are playing, that's not very much money.
No.
When you call it cost of living and all that kind of stuff. We have a very low cost of living here. We have no idea to estimate those costs.
Give you an idea. Asia Durr, the All-American at Louisville, she was the number 2 pick this year in the WNBA draft.
Yeah.
She's going to get $56,000 her first year to play in New York.
Right. So she'll be living in a walk-up on somewhere in the Bronx, probably.
Yeah, that's not a lot. Now, I'm sure that's not including endorsements, and I'm sure there'll be some endorsement deals. But for the most part, that's not a lot.
Yeah. Now I don't know what. I'm not here to tell you how much they should be making as a base.
Yeah.
But if if we want the league to be better, the stars have to be able to play. If they're spending 8 other months out of the year having to play somewhere else because that's where they actually make their money, then the league is suffering from that.
That's correct, and it's a slow trickle down too. I mean, little girls want to, be like the high school players, and the high school wants to play college ball. And if you're a successful college female player, I would assume you would like to take the next step.
Yeah.
And so it's a trickle down and so forth. And I just thought it was interesting to see. I don't think it wasn't publicized a lot, but a tear of an Achilles is about as bad of an injury for any athlete to come back from.
Yeah, used to you couldn't. That's what
right.
DeMarcus Cousins spent 9 months trying to get back.
That's correct. It's much worse injury than an ACL now.
Yeah. Well, real quick, we talk about people losing leads. Golden State lost a 31-point lead to the Clippers last week. I thought that was hilarious.
In the second half.
In the second half.
That's right.
8 minutes to go in the third quarter.
That's
right?
exactly right. Hardest thing to do in sports is to play with the lead.
Yeah,
but any level. It can happen.
But now they've come back and proven that they were a lot better because they beat the crap out of the Clippers the next 2 games.
That's correct.
Well, this Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week at 4 o'clock.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
This is WCDS Glasgow, ESPN Radio 1230, your total sports leader.